Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 3. This is going to be about AI and creativity. Something I'm actually pretty passionate about since I do a lot of my own art on the side and stuff. So, this is a topic I've definitely given a lot of thought to just for myself and how I want to approach art and kind of my own creativity and my journey in that. So, there's going to be a lot to talk about in this one. And I might have to split it up, but we'll see. I'm just going to kind of dive in and we'll see where it ends up. Very much still experimenting with this format. Anytime you bring up artificial intelligence and creativity, it's always a hot button issue. There's people on both sides that are pretty firmly entrenched at this point. And so um, I often think that when you have like two entrenched sides like that are that kind of sure of themselves, it's usually actually because both people are right in some sense. And I don't think this AI debate is any exception. You really have um, kind of two main camps, I would say. People who, are very against it because it's going to displace artists or it's going to, really kind of suck the soul out of art. And then you have the other side, which is people that want to just kind of embrace the technology, really push it to its limits and see what they can do with it. And, if some jobs are lost in the mix of that, then so be it. Progress kind of demands innovation or people um, getting with the times in some sense. It's not a very generous way of saying it, but that's kind of how it is, I think. With each side kind of having their point um, to the first camp, I think they really want to preserve the soul or the essence of art, and um, they're worried about kind of over commercialization of just art as a product instead of something that's meaningful. And I think by extension, they're looking out for the artist in a lot of ways, or trying to. Um, trying to. There's already the trope of the starving artist, and um, so they're about to be a lot more starving if technology comes along and displaces them. So I think that's kind of the main worry of that camp, or or what they're trying to just they're trying to make sure art retains a lot of it, or as much integrity as it can. That's a We'll get into that a little bit later, but I think that's their main concern. As far as those who want to embrace it, I think it is an exciting new field. Um, Anytime you kind of have a disruptive technology, you're just it's wide open what you can do, what you can achieve. Um, we're going to see results that we haven't even imagined yet, and so I think that excites a lot of people. I tend to fall more into that camp, but kind of going back to the previous episode, I'm a big fan of balance. I think you gotta you gotta find where um, these things meet, and then take the best of both worlds and move forward. To dive a little deeper, I think it's helpful to look at art and its purpose in society. There's definitely different levels when it comes to art. I think we'd all agree. Um, just looking at maybe your personal favorite movie, your book illustration, or something like that. If you were to compare that to an illustration for a billboard of Pepsi, or Transformers 25 coming out this summer, whatever iteration, um, I think we would see a big difference in just the value it holds um, in our own lives, but also the meaning it's putting out into society. So I think regardless of the medium, you really, uh, it's really there's something underlying just the medium of the art or something, because they can share a medium but have completely different value or meaning to society. And that's not a value judgment or anything. There's places for all of it in a healthy society, I believe. But um, to say that it's just art is the medium, I think, is a bit of an oversimplification. So we have to really, I think, dive down and find out what the meaning is to us and what constitutes meaning and where the proper places are for these things um, in a well functioning society. So I think when it comes down to it, people are more concerned about maybe the higher levels of art being affected by AI. Um, you don't really see uh, many feathers ruffled over, someone using AI to create a brochure for their conference or something, or make a more, I don't know, interesting billboard or something. It's always in relation to, uh, very, or it seems to be more in relation to kind of like masterwork type art, or um, spaces where people are really pouring their creativity into. And that's not to say these other areas don't have that, but I think we have a very, as a society, we have a very uh, narrow view of what constitutes art, and it has to do with kind of fine art or galleries or these kinds of things. And so, um, what is that higher level of art doing for us as people in some sense? And so I think there's a lot of different roles that art can serve in that way. Um, I think you know we look for we look to higher art to kind of inspire us, to be able to transcend our current frame of thinking, to provoke us. Um, you uh, it could even kind of be entertainment or comfort when you're feeling down. I think these are all kind of roles that really good art can serve um, in our communities. So just to switch gears a little bit and talk about how I see AI at this point, um, I do see it as more of a tool, at least at this point, before artificial general intelligence comes out. Um, and like tools, they will kind of reflect their users in a lot of ways and the user's needs. And so with AI right now, um, a lot of what we see being generated is kind of mirrored from human interest and um, just whatever use case people can think of right now, and it's very driven by human creativity. Um, and with a good tool, a lot of times, you know, what it does is increase your um, kind of your agency. It increases um, your, it can decrease your workload, um, make you more efficient. All these kinds of things, kind of like I talked about in the last episode. So I think artists won't um, like it's not going to diminish kind of whatever it factor they were putting into their art before. It will more so actually at this point just free them up, I think. And when they're freed up, you know, it's not going to be a case of, okay, well, I have all this extra time, so I'm going to go waste it. I think people, really driven people who are artistic, will take that time freed up and put it into other areas. And they'll just keep exploring because that's kind of the nature of, I think, artists in general is very exploratory. And so you free them up from one task, and yeah, they're just gonna basically, I think, use that free space now to explore other ideas or dive deeper into things that were interesting before. Kind of similar to maybe how a gas expands in a volume. It's you can block off one area of the volume, and it's gonna either increase the pressure somewhere else or find an escape into another area. So um, I think you'll. I don't think that it's going to cause any sort of complacency for people who are really into art. And one thing people might not remember is we've already basically had this debate at you know different points in history. The most recent being, I think, with digital art specifically. Um, I was kind of on the tail end of it, I think, of just where there was some hard feelings, I guess, where digital artists were getting called out for being either cheating or not being real artists because they were using a digital medium. Things like Photoshop really changing the game on how you could really manipulate um, you know at that point paintings and stuff and images, uh, and so that was a huge game changer that there was massive questions about. And in a lot of ways I think it mirrored kind of what's going on now, or I guess now mirrors then. But um, you definitely see these cycles repeat throughout history. And so when that happened, I think it's useful to look back and just have a kind of more concrete example of what happened. Did people, with this new technology, did people just stop painting as much? Or so if they could create a painting in half the time, did they then just slack off or you know not be as productive? I mean, in some sense, no. I mean, they took that free time and then they either created more complex works or even actually integrated it into other had more time to integrate it into other maybe fields to kind of do cross collaboration or became multidisciplinary because they had more time. So it wasn't they didn't become just strictly a painter. Now they're also a painter and an animator, or they are a painter and doing work with video. So I think it freed people up to kind of bring things together that wouldn't have been brought together before in a lot of ways. And ultimately, it didn't even stop traditional people from continuing their work even after the digital space was kind of established. To this day, you still have people that work in traditional mediums, and I think there is even an argument that it can be a net gain for those people since they're really, as a new medium gets established, um, the entire kind of base of artists or whatever, the majority of them will move to this new space to kind of stay competitive in work or whatnot. And so you're actually creating as new mediums become established, you're creating these spaces for you know other groups of artists in the past to kind of stick with their medium. And so with each new medium, there's one new one or one old one that becomes part of this subsection and creates these niches going back that um, you know that certain artists feel called to. And so I think when they're in those spaces, um, then they can kind of stand out a little bit easier from the crowd. It's like the person doing uh, gouache painting. It's such a niche thing, but um, it's a very specific thing that when people are intrigued by it or inspired by it, they go and look, and maybe there's five artists in that space, but they get this very kind of intimate connection with these artists because there's not as many people doing it. And so I think it really just creates spaces where people can shine, and when they feel called back to these spaces, they can continue it on. Still, it's not just a dead space once there's a new medium to pursue. So I think adding new things is actually um, in some ways a way to keep the old stuff alive, because the really dedicated people go back to those spaces. So at this point, it really boils down to what makes an artist great, or a true artist, or someone that stands out. Is it just technical skill, or is it something more fundamental? Um, if it is just technical, I mean, at this point, I think we've already been surpassed in the digital age with things like Photoshop, or uh, the ability to even take photos to some extent. Is took over from painting in a lot of ways, just being able to capture life, or try to capture moods, or different things about life. So um, you have programs that are incredibly powerful, far beyond any human capacity that we use. But I think if it's purely just technical, um, I don't know that that holds up. I mean, it's like things that are very intricate and detailed. They're very fun to look at. They're impressive, but I I don't think those will stand the test of time as much. You can even see that now with digital painting, where you can look at 100 paintings. 99 of them can be super detailed, hyper detailed, you know, renditions of just real life or whatnot. But that one painting that's in an abstract style, or just covers a subject matter that's very emotional or something, is going to stick with you far more than those 99 CGI renderings of a planet or something. Um, and so I think you even see that throughout history too. It's um, we can recognize art, regardless of its technical qualities in a lot of senses. Think about a cave painting, an ancient cave painting or something. It's like it's not technical in the least. It's mostly stick figures and some colors and you know very crude renditions of things, but we all call it art, cave art. So um, there's obviously a meaning there that's being conveyed that we can pick up on and call it art. To address kind of a bigger concern I've heard put out there is with AI making art is kind of you get the soulless art um, epidemic or something. But I think the sad truth of it is actually that's already happened and probably has happened in forever in the past to some extent. But I think especially in this digital age, soulless art already exists. I mean, the person you know who gets their commission from their art director working for a video game studio that has to make the next Call of Duty each year. It's like, they're not getting, they're not getting creative freedom. Their art directors breathing down their neck, telling them, you know, what the corporate agenda is, how to make it look. They're they're basing their, a lot of their vision off of, statistics for what's hot, what's coming in from the marketing department. So, um, I think a lot of art is already pretty soulless, um, and those will be the first jobs to go. Honestly, where it's like if it's just coming down to a corporate bottom line, that you need something that checks all your boxes. I don't think a lot of the soul is left in that art to begin with. So um, yeah, I don't think what might change is the quantity of soulless art if AI generation is the thing, and I mean, yeah, you'll get probably inundated with it, but that's more of a problem of learning how to filter kind of irrelevant data or art. That's going to be, I think, a really big either industry or something people have to learn in the future with how much stuff will be generated. So I do think, yeah, we'll continue to see soulless art maybe at an increased rate, but I don't think that's changing the paradigm from how it is now in any meaningful way. Um, so yeah, I don't think there will ever be really a replacement for human creativity and inspiration, and what can be done when you really apply your mind and kind of your inner visions, I guess, for lack of a better way of saying it. That'll definitely that could be a controversial statement, and I know you can kind of make the argument that general intelligence will be able to do everything better than humans, but um, maybe that'll have to be a part two video. We can expand on that topic a little bit. Ultimately, though, to end on a more positive note, I was going to just highlight some of the things that I found exciting in AI development and creativity. Um, Things that inspire me, make me want to create more. Um, I really like what I'm currently working on is a graphic novel. So I'm kind of combining a lot of the art models and stuff to try to uh, kind of realize bigger visions I've had in my head of things that because I really like world building, and so to kind of take all those different things in, I feel like I would need to be a master in a lot of different disciplines to really bring everything together that I want to. Um, but now with artificial intelligence, I do feel like I get a leg up, and it doesn't. I guess I don't feel like I have to learn everything now. I can kind of take what I really enjoy, which is the tying all these themes together, um, different fictional narratives, and I can focus less on learning maybe like the technical side of things, which I don't really have an interest in. I'll be honest. I really like, you know, I like telling the story, and so the technical stuff is more of a hindrance to me to like get the story out there in a lot of ways. So I've been really having fun with just image models, kind of putting together different panels and stuff along with some of my writing, and that's been a really just fulfilling and rewarding process. Um, I think what's kind of cool is um, people who can now mix styles, um, where you will be able to kind of make fusions of things that you haven't seen before. Um, I don't know. I have this, I guess, notion or intuition that, um, because people, I think people like intuitively know like that diversity is like an interesting concept, or like a usually like is a net positive in society. Um, like I don't think people really understand the fundamentals of why that is, or how mixing things together can be good. But I do think there is a very powerful underlying principle there. And so um, if you can have tools that can draw from many different sources and bring them together, I think you get, in some cases, a sum greater than their parts. So I think that can be something that's net positive overall. Um, some other cool things I've seen: live action animation, where people kind of take their own, you know, footage from whatever they're doing and turn it into animation, and kind of stylize it in different ways, and really spice it up and make it just like cool and engaging. So again, that's kind of mixing styles in some sense. I've actually been doing that with some of my work, where with an image model, um, you can basically you can input your own images into it and kind of extrapolate different data from it. So one thing I've been doing is extracting poses from images. And so something funny you can even do for your scenes with your characters or whatever is you can take a picture of yourself and, act out whatever pose you want the character to have. So you're almost bringing AI back into real life in some sense, or out into the physical world, by, now you're engaging with your art in a as like almost as an actor or something, whereas before you would just sit at your little tablet and just draw away and do that, but now you're actually embodying your art by you making the poses, and it really just kind of like connects you in a weird way to the images you're doing. So I do think that for as much as people are like, oh, AI will take you out of the world, and what about the real world? I think there's actually applications where then you go back into the into the world to, it's you can use it to break down the barriers of technology in some ways. So that's been cool. Um, One thing I'm super excited for that I kind of touched on is, small teams being able to really achieve large visions. And so, people, if the barrier to entry is so high for creativity, and it takes a large investment of either capital or time, the people dominating the highest forms of art will be, or I guess the most intricate forms of art will be, people with the capital and with the money, and those tend not to be the most creative people. Just hopefully that's a fact. um, because they're have to protect their interests and appeal to broad broad groups of people. So I think with kind of the democratization that comes with AI and a lot of these functions, I think you will actually see an explosion in creativity, and actually high quality creativity coming from people that you know would have wouldn't have had access to, even maybe in the future make a movie now with like, one or two person team. It's like, you know there's going to be more out there that's, the people's passion projects, and that's what we really want to see, right? It's not Marvel movie 78. It's, the person that's put their heart and soul into their project and been able to do it kind of out of their home or whatever. And if it's high quality and whatnot, then more power to them. Bring it on. I say it. I think it unlocks a lot of potential that maybe was, you know not accessible for people. So, and lastly, I think this one I'm more on the fence about, but um, using artificial intelligence for inspiration, I think, um, you kind of get this idea of rapid prototyping, where you can generate a bunch of ideas and then kind of sift through them as a person, and just kind of maybe like pull out things that are interesting and put them together in different ways. Um, like this is almost a whole other video in itself and another topic, but you know, people, there's the argument that, artificial intelligence is stealing from other artists because it's using their work. I mean, in essence, it's all artists are ever doing anyway, is just looking at other people's work, taking it in, and then, tweaking it to fit their worldview and then putting it back out. So I don't see artificial intelligence as too much different in that realm. Like it's basically doing what artists are already doing. So, um, but there it is pulling from a lot more information, and so ultimately, even if you're being inspired by, you know, rapid prototyping and image generation or prompt text generation or whatnot, um, it's still in some way pulling from those human sources that that you might have, that you would have pulled from otherwise. It's just at a higher level, and it's pulling in. It can pick up on maybe more patterns or large level patterns, I guess, and bring them to you. So yeah, I don't know. I think, yeah, you're not necessarily even being inspired by some soulless machine. You're being inspired by the aggregation of a lot of different theme and work. So yeah, and I don't know. Again, where inspiration even comes from, or you know, that kind of thing is a very abstract and nuanced topic, which deserves its own video, I'm sure. But yeah, I think that's where I'll wrap it up, and hopefully people can be inspired in their own lives and maybe not afraid of AI, or at least take a measured approach and try to figure out the real pros and cons for themselves and how they want to engage with it, and not just blindly hate it or love it, or blindly just use it. It's like, I think if you go into it with intention, you can really bring the best results out for yourself. So thanks everyone for watching, and I'll be back next week for another video. Bye.
Komm mit 20 Weibern durch den Hintereingang. Kaum kommt die Bande, ruft der Nachbar Polizei an. Drink in der Hand und die Kapseln an meinen Eiern. Kaum kommt die Bande, ruft der Nachbar